Welcome everyone to the South Coast Bikeway Alliance meeting that we're having tonight, an informational meeting at the Dartmouth Town Hall. And the purpose of the meeting is to go through and explain to you about a Department of Conservation and Recreation DCR grant that our Bikeway Alliance has received. It's an educational grant, general in nature, and we just, before we go into explaining to you exactly what that's about and all the workshops, I'd just like to take a minute and give you a little bit about who the South Coast Bikeway is for people that might not know. And so I'm the president of the committee. Greg Barnes here is a member, and he's also the finance director here in the town of Dartmouth. And also here tonight is Sandy Medeiros. She's been a member with us for a few years, and someone who has recently, not a member, but he's really come and helped us quite a bit, Paul Pulowski here. He's been doing a lot with us with maps. And so thanks for coming to learn about this. We're excited about this program that the DCR has awarded to us. And I did pass out some flyers. If anyone hasn't gotten one, there's one up on the table. It tells you a little bit more detail about South Coast Bikeway Alliance. Feel free to take one of those. And there's a sign-in sheet. We'd like to make sure we can contact you and let you know more about the program, the dates, what the different workshops are, and then make sure we have you registered for one if you're interested in one or more. And one thing that we're looking to do with these workshops is engage people and have people get excited about, the potential to have a lot of volunteer work come in to play to build soft trails, so not necessarily paved asphalt trails like you see in some areas, but less expensive trails that can be built using a lot of volunteer effort and in-kind donations, that type of thing. Massachusetts Greenway has done quite a bit of that in their area. They've done almost 20 miles, and it's been very successful for them over a number of years. They came to our summit in March and explained to us how they did that, and so we're trying to kind of follow along in their footsteps and do something similar. So although the criteria for this grant that we received was that it's not to be specifically tied into any particular project. So it has to be general in nature so that this information could be used for anyone in any place. But we would like to just share with you that our committee has been doing a lot of work, led by Greg Barnes here, to see if there's an opportunity to connect some of the existing points of interest, land trusts in our area, the bioreserve, parks in Dartmouth, and different areas together through an off-road trail. There's a tremendous opportunity for that, and as well. So this map that's up here, and there's one in the back of the room you can take a look at. If you're interested, you can talk to Greg about that. We're not going to spend tonight's meeting going over that, but so our vision is that whether it's this project or some other project, we're looking for a small, doable project in the near future, so next year, the year after, where we would apply for grants that would help us build that with matching funds. So we would need to do some fundraising, and those would be construction type grants that we'd be looking for. So we would be looking for a volunteer base that would want to go out and do work and help build trails and connect all these different points of interest, and we would be looking for a similar type of thing where we might have to put up 20% and hope that we can get an 80% grant for that. And so that's what's down the road. That's what we're kind of gearing up for by doing something like this. So Greg, would you like to add anything to that before we get started?
Just the concept is for a long time we've talked about a 50-mile bikeway, or what I like to call a greenway, going from basically the Rhode Island border over to Wareham. Part of the problem we've had is in Dartmouth and Westport, you do have a rail line, but it is mainly used up until Mid-City and Westport. That presents a difficulty and going along the roadways creates difficulties. Getting easements is extremely difficult. So what we're proposing is using our protected lands, if you will, to get across. And it just so happens that there's a contiguous corridor of protected land going from one side of Dartmouth to the other, which is 3.8 miles. And it hits two very large conservation areas, one the Acushnet Cedar Swamp in New Bedford, and on the other side the bioreserve. And going through them, we believe we can hook up to the Quikachan through Westport on one side, and on the other side we will have to go on road, but through New Bedford to the Blue Lane, which is currently being built and eventually will be built up to the upper reaches of the Acushnet River right before the Acushnet Park up there.
All right, and so before I introduce the guest speaker, our original vision for this meeting was going to be very informal, just kind of, everyone would do a presentation, some question and answers, and mill around and talk. But there was a request to have Dartmouth Cable TV film, and we thought that was a good idea. So we're sitting up here at the microphone so we can be heard, but when you ask questions, I'm not sure how that's going to work. We might have to... Okay, someone might come up to the... So we might have to, have some formality just to, if we can, get it recorded like that. But I think before we get started, it might be helpful to just go around the room. We've told you about the three of us on the committee here, but maybe just tell us, who your name, what town you're from, and then maybe we can kick off the formal presentation. So maybe we can start on this side here.
Alan Slavin, Selectman Town of Wareham, Vice Chair of Serpent.
All right, excellent, thank you. So you can go ahead.
I'm Nancy McHale. I'm treasurer of the Wareham Land Trust, and we have a stewardship committee, none of whom could be here today. So I came hoping to be able to get some information about the future workshops, because we hope to be able to have at least some of our stewards attend some of the upcoming workshops.
Oh, excellent. All right,
Kathy
thank you.
Pappalardo, Wareham Land Trust, one of the board members.
All right,
To learn what's going on.
all right, excellent, thank you.
I'm Mary Ellen Boyle. I live in Dartmouth, and I'm interested in this project.
All right,
Brian O'Hare, I live in Dartmouth too, interested in the project.
all right, great.
Paul Pavlovsky, architect, landscape architect. I live in New Bedford, and very interested in this project.
All right. Pete, why don't you go ahead?
Pete Medeiros, my wife made me come. No, I love this project. I'm really excited about it, and it's doable.
We know better. I skipped you, I'm
Fred
sorry.
Rogers from New Bedford, very interested.
Okay, excellent. And
I'm Pete's wife, Sandra Medeiros. I'm also a co-rep for Dartmouth for the South Coast Bikeway Alliance.
And by the way, if anybody read the press release, saw anything on Facebook or any social media, she's the one that made that happen. So thank you, Sam.
I'm Phil Dewar. I'm the chair of the Pathways Committee in the city of Toronto.
Thank you. No.
I'm Mike Lavoisier. I'm on the Dartmouth Pathways Committee. I live in Dartmouth, but I also manage the Fall Rivers Water Department property in the southeastern Mass Fire Reserve.
Steve Willard, Westport Selectman, trying to get it connected with you.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Nice. So I'm a selectman in the town of Fairhaven also, so we have 3 selectmen here. That's great. So tonight, thank you for everyone. Tonight we have Erin Amandon. She's from Peter S. Jensen Associates, and she's here to present, as you know, about the workshops. So I'm going to let her introduce herself and explain who she is, what the company does, and all about these workshops, and just take it from there. So thank you, Erin.
Thanks, Bob. Can we kill one of the lights so that maybe we can see the...
It's a digital,
the
press it
okay,
down.
it might... all right.
Thanks. And anybody who wants to step a little further forward, if you
if you
see
can
the screen.
Yeah, get where you can see.
Right, there's plenty of room up there.
Plenty of room. And if you have any questions throughout the whole presentation...
Okay. Yeah, feel free to step up and grab some cheese and crackers and water. There's more water in the cooler.
I don't know, we just do one thing.
Can everyone
Okay.
see the screen?
Everyone see the screen okay?
Okay.
I'm just gonna do the mic.
I think he's going to move the mic just in case there's any questions. We can stop at any point and
Oh, you want to pull the,
shout him out.
oh, that'd be good. Thanks.
Perfect.
All right.
All right.
Excellent.
So, like Bob said, my name is Erin Amadon. I work with Peter S. Jensen and Associates. We're a private trail contracting company. Currently, right now, we're working in Warren, New Hampshire for Dartmouth College on the Moosilauke Ravine Lodge. They're building a new lodge, and we're doing a very tiny section of the trail from the parking lot down to the lodge. I just thought it was funny that I came from a Dartmouth property to another Dartmouth property. What I have for you today is just 28 slides. I give you an overview of our company, an overview of the workshops, and then a quick bio of some of the instructors and sort of their backgrounds. So I'll save my background until we get to that last slide with the overview of the different instructors. I apologize if it sounds like I'm reading from a script. I'm going to pretty much plan on reading from the script just to make sure that I get all the information out there. Any questions before we begin?
You know, I'm sorry, I neglected to say one thing. Yes, sure, come on right up and step forward here. So what happened was when we applied for the grant, we needed to come up with the programming, what we were going to put into this. And to be honest with you, we're a bicycling organization. We didn't have a lot of experience with any of this. So, but we received information from actually the Dartmouth Pathways Committee. This contact came by way of that group with some other work that had been done. And so we contacted Peter S. Jensen, and Erin was their rep to help us form, what kind of workshops we could do. And they helped us actually write the grant, so that the content that went into the grant that explained what we were going to put on for workshops actually came from them. So we're now going to, work with them to actually, run the workshops. So, but thank you.
So again, it's Peter S. Jensen Associates, LLC. We're based out of Washington, Vermont. We're a small company. We have 6 partners, and I am one of those partners. We travel all over New England, building different types of trails. And our commitment is to designing and building pedestrian trails which provide safe visitor access while safeguarding the natural, cultural, and historic landscapes. Our objective is to incorporate innovative design and construction techniques, utilize unique and low-impact equipment, build trails which will become historic, and create trail experiences. Our company has been a member of the Professional Trail Builders Association since 2001. The Professional Trail Builders Association supports the trails industry through professional design, construction, and education. PTBA members span the globe, and currently there are about 125 members. Our company focuses mainly on 3 types of construction: universal access trails, technical stonework in hard-to-reach locations, and helical anchor boardwalks. Our clients have included Crotched Mountain Foundation, the National Park Service, the Forest Service, the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, Massachusetts Audubon Society, Berkshire Natural Resources Council, the trustees, Maine Conservation Corps, Vermont Youth Conservation Corps, Dartmouth College, Seekonk Lands Trust, the Sipacans Land Trust, the Nature Conservancy. Actually, we built that boardwalk in Little Compton, Rhode Island, right behind the middle school, New York Power Authority, and many more. Our company offers an array of trail workshops for trail and conservation groups, youth corps, federal agencies, and volunteer groups. Over the last decade, Peter Jensen, Carl Demrow, and myself have facilitated well over 100 workshops and training topics which include sustainable trail design, chainsaw safety, rigging for trail work, trail layout and construction, tread and drainage, and building with stone, carpentry, stone splitting and shaping, crew and volunteer leadership, and universal access trail construction. When Bob and I first spoke in January, he approached me with the idea of applying for the DCR educational grant and what type of workshops our company might be able to offer. After a phone call and more than a few emails, we narrowed down the topics in which we felt would be the best fit for the South Coast Bikeway Alliance and their target audiences. Our company is pleased to be able to offer 3 different workshops at this time. They are entitled Sustainable Trail Layout and Design, Trail Stewardship and Basic Skills Training, and a Specialty Skills Training. This may either be in stonework, carpentry, rigging for trails, or chainsaw safety. Our first workshop is Sustainable Trail Layout and Design. This is a 1-day workshop, and it will focus on trail layout and design for natural surface trails and include both classroom and field time for up to 10 participants. A typical discussion around what is a sustainable trail will cover trail construction techniques, including outslope tread, sustainable grades, frequent grade reversals, erosion resistance, a path that traverses along a slide slope, provisions for sheet flow runoff, positive user experience, and low maintenance. We also call these the 8 sustainable solutions. This workshop will field test these concepts and give the participants hands-on experience using a variety of layout tools. Each participant will lay out their own trail line, and we will have a discussion and evaluate that trail line in the class. And we are going to make sure that all the sustainable concepts are addressed to the best of our ability and make improvements with real-time feedback. This workshop is suitable for recreational planners, land managers, trail advocates, policymakers, designers, architects, trail stewards, and hopefully it will help them have a better understanding of sustainability through a comprehensive and practical approach to trail layout and design in order to ensure that organizations are providing the experience that trail users are looking for and durability of a trail or a trail system. The next workshop is Trail Stewardship and Basic Skills Training. This is a 2-day workshop and will focus on exploring the fundamentals of sustainable trail layout and design as is specifically applied to tread and drainage structures and will for up to 10 participants. A basic understanding of hillside hydrology, how trails should work, developing trail eyes, different structural options, construction tactics, proper pruning techniques for woody plants, restoration of damaged trails, and prioritizing maintenance through trail triage will be the basis for this workshop. Participants will demonstrate trail stewardship skills by applying knowledge learned through hands-on demonstration throughout the workshop. Participants will receive direct feedback from the instructor on how to improve construction techniques. This workshop is suitable for recreational planners, land managers, trail advocates, designers, architects, trail stewards, volunteers, trail builders, and trail contractors. The Specialty Skills Training. This will be a 2-day workshop and will focus either on stonework for trails, carpentry for wetland structures, rigging for trails, or chainsaw safety, and is for up to 8 participants. Participants will have to have attended one of the prior workshops, and the topic of the specialty skills will be determined and decided upon by a survey of those participants in the first 2 workshops. Participants will demonstrate the specialty skill by applying knowledge learned through hands-on demonstration throughout the workshop. Participants will receive direct feedback from the instructor on how to improve techniques. These workshops are suitable for recreational planners, land managers, trail advocates, designers, architects, trail stewards, volunteers, trail builders, and trail contractors. So just to talk a little bit about the specialty skills workshops. So a stonework for trails workshop is really for those with patience, attention to detail, a hard work ethic, and a general love of puzzles. Stonework can be one of the most rewarding forms of trail work because of its longevity and its aesthetics. This workshop will explore the ideal rock size and shapes for structures, safe transportation methods, and construction techniques for stone structures. We'll also do a little bit on stone splitting and shaping in this workshop. Carpentry for wetland structures. This workshop will immerse participants in the methods and best practices of building wetland structures. Discussions around the importance of wetland resources, natural heritage data, wetland permitting, minimizing wetland impact, and international building code requirements will dictate the appropriate structure for the environment. Participants may construct a bog bridge, a puncheon, a boardwalk, a bridge, a culvert, a turnpike, or a platform as part of this workshop. It's really site-specific. Rigging for trails. So trail work often requires moving heavy objects in a variety of settings and conditions. This workshop will cover the basics of moving heavy objects with minimal impact on the forest floor using the grip hoist highline system. Topics covered will include safety use and maintenance, mechanical advantage, working load limits, ground and aerial operations, and belaying heavy loads. The last specialty skills workshop is the chainsaw safety. This emphasis of this workshop is to enhance your knowledge of safe chainsaw use, identification of hazards, mitigation of hazards, and practical experience using a chainsaw. Upon successful demonstration of chainsaw use and understanding of the associated hazards, a certificate of completion will be issued. A basic first aid and CPR are part of the requirement for this class. The basis for this course is the Forest Service's Chainsaw and Crosscut Training Course curriculum. So even though you'll be issued a certificate of completion, you won't be issued a Forest Service card. It'll be the same course, but it won't be the official card, unfortunately. All right. So these are your instructors, Peter Jensen, Carl Demrow, and myself. It kind of varies, and depending on scheduling and timing, these are the three folks that you might see at one of the workshops. I'm just going to read through their bios for you so you have a rough idea of who they are and what you can expect from these instructors. So the first one is Peter Jensen. He started building trails in the 1970s. I think he's about 41 years, and I'm only at 20, so I got about halfway to go, or he needs to stop doing trail work so I can catch up to him. So he worked for the Appalachian Mountain Club, or the AMC, and he graduated from the University of New Hampshire with a degree in soil science and a minor in biology, and he spent 6 years working on staff for the AMC. During that time, he worked on trail planning and design projects, most notably as a team member for the design and attainment of the Appalachian National Scenic Trail Corridor in Massachusetts and Connecticut. In 1998, he formed Open Space Management, which was a sole proprietorship with a broad range of services. During this time, Peter served on several nonprofit boards, including the ATC. He served as the Appalachian Trail Conservancy's representative to the U.S. Access Board's Regulatory Negotiation Committee for Outdoor Developed Areas. What that mouthful means is that he helped develop the federal standards for universal access trails and developing trail systems to get more folks outdoors and open that up for folks with all abilities. In 2005, he, along with 8 partners, formed Peter S. Jensen Associates. He currently lives in Washington, Vermont. Carl Demrow is a member of our company and has been since 2014, but he's worked with us since the beginning. He has provided trail management and planning expertise to a wide variety of government and nonprofit clients since 1999. He's worked as a carpenter and a logger and has been teaching chainsaw skills for over a decade. Carl is a Forest Service C-rated sawyer and has completed all 4 levels of game of logging, and he wrote the Tricks of the Trade for Northern Woodlands magazine for about 10 years. From 1993 to 1998, Carl worked for the Appalachian Mountain Club as their White Mountain Trails program manager and director of trails. He co-wrote AMC's 3rd edition of the Complete Guide to Trail Building and Maintenance. He is a past New England vice chair of the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, past president of the Waterman Fund, and chair of the Orange County Headwaters. Carl also lives in Washington, Vermont. Well, technically, I think he just moved to Corinth. And then myself. My passion for trail work began 2 decades ago when I first served with a Vermont Youth Conservation Corps as a crew member for 2 years. I worked on a project, the Ball Mountain Dam project in Jamaica, Vermont, which Peter Jensen had actually designed, and I first met Peter in high school, although he doesn't remember it. And then after that, I worked for the Green Mountain Club's Long Trail Patrol, and for about 2.5 years. And then during college, I worked with the Student Conservation Association's New Hampshire Parks and AmeriCorps program. I actually went to school for 2 years, took a 1.5 years off, and during that time I did that 1,700-hour AmeriCorps program where I taught environmental ed in Manchester's New Hampshire city schools, and then did trail work in New Hampshire state parks. After that, I completed a National Outdoor Leadership School annual semester in the Southwest, and then I went back to Unity College to complete my degree in park management. During that time, I also led 4 SCA high school crews, 3 on the Appalachian Trail, 1 in Maine, Vermont, and Virginia. Sorry, Appalachian Trail down in Virginia. And then 1 up in Alaska. And then I've been teaching SCA work skills to crew leaders since 2002. And they go on to lead high school crews, so I teach all their technical training. In 2005, I started the company with Peter, and during the same time in the winter, I worked with the Maine Conservation Corps, first as a crew leader, then as a senior team leader, and then as their trail training coordinator. So I developed an 11-week training curriculum where we would take 6 folks and teach them everything we could about leading a crew, volunteer management, to the technical aspects of trail work, and then implement that. And then they would go on to lead an MCC crew during the summer and fall, and hopefully come back the following year. So those are your crew leaders. And I have a couple more slides, I think, of just different projects and fun. But I guess at this time I'd open it up for any questions about the workshops. And Bob, if you
that'd be fine. I just want to mention a couple of things that as she was going through her presentation that I was reminded of. And one is, on our grant application, we had listed 4 workshops.
Thank you, Bob.
So the 4th one, which was not anything that their company was going to do, but I just wanted to make you aware of it, was a GPS trail mapping workshop. So our goal was to try and get people who are out on using trails to use their own, smartphones or what other type of device they might have to track whether they're on a bike, hiking, running, whatever, and then to be able to document, all of the trails in our area. This was pretty extensive, what's already built in this area. And so what we're planning on do, we're working with the Buzzards Bay Coalition, who's done a lot of mapping already in this area, and they've agreed to work with us to try and figure out the best way to put that particular workshop together. So that we're not really going to, I'm open to suggestions, or anybody wants to, talk about that tonight. It's just that we don't have a prepared presentation. We're a little bit further along. Go ahead.
I have a question. The expectation is with these workshops, you're going to train a core of people that would ultimately be able to work on developing the bike trails that you discussed earlier on in the program?
Right, so that trail is not necessarily going to be a bike trail. It's going to be, what we're envisioning is connecting as many points of interest as possible. And this route that we talked about could potentially connect a lot of space where there are already trails existing. So it just, we feel like that's a good project. But our emphasis on a phase 2 that would be an actual construction project is really down the road. We need more planning. We need to develop this plan and see if it's workable. We can see if all the stakeholders that would be, the towns, the cities, the various land trusts, all these different organizations are really interested in doing that project. It could be that there's another project in Wareham or Marion or somewhere else that becomes the first one that we try to do a construction project on. The focus of these workshops is to get people interested in any and all of those things, to provide some training so that, yes, when we get to the point where we feel like we have a small doable project that might be, building a bridge over something to connect different trails that exist right now, whatever that is, that we've kind of thought through with the best ones. And the other thing is, Greg has been really good about pointing out to us that as time goes by, there are missed opportunities because land is developed, homes are built, other commercial properties maybe, and if there was a plan that was thought out in advance of that, then maybe there's one little segment that could be preserved to make this whole thing possible. But if we're not thinking in this way, then you could have this, whole, a section over here and a section over here that you can't really connect easily because there's a piece in the middle that was developed. So, that's, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Greg, but.
Yeah, we're trying to start with a basic trail and build it from there. And we want to, it's important we do something now because the opportunities to have a contiguous trail, I can tell you that I can go along the route and I can tell you all sorts of areas that just 5 years ago were opportunities that no longer are there today. The development is rapid. I can't speak in Wareham, but I know in Dartmouth and Westport and even parts of Fall River, they're all under development threat. And once those areas are gone, the idea of having a contiguous pathway is going to go with it. So it's important, I think, we do something now, which we can build upon for the future. I also think, from my perspective, as well as I know quite a number of other on the committee, talking about something and visualizing something are two different things. To have just taking Dartmouth, a 3.8 mile contiguous trail, that would be pretty impressive. And I think it would highlight the area for people, and I build up support in terms of going to that next step.
But these courses, trainings, are to create a core of people that might be able to do that 3.8.
Yeah, we currently do not have a 3.8 mile trail in Dartmouth going from one end to the other. There are huge challenges in putting that together. You're dealing with a lot of wetland, you're dealing with areas where there never were paths before, you're dealing with knowledge issues, which we hope these seminars will address.
And there are people in the area who are experienced at building these types of trails. Mike's been at this for a long, long time and has a lot of experience in that area. So, there may be people, what we're trying to do is introduce new people to the concept, have new people come forward to help them. There are groups right now that struggle with how to maintain, their existing trails and make sure that they, they're people are caring for them. So in the stewardship section, we might learn things about existing trails and things that can be done to make sure that they're maintained properly. So we purposely left when Erin and I talked about this, we said, well, the specialty skills, training might be really nice, but we don't know who's going to show up and what their interests are going to be. So we wanted to leave that one open to say, whoever comes to this, let them decide what they want to be trained in. And, Greg and I would just kind of, while you were listening to this, the one that we talked, like a footbridge kind of a thing, crossing over some areas, seems to us to be something that you could do a small doable project right away. Now, when I say a small doable project, and I narrowed it down to just that type of thing, that's really not enough of what we're looking for. Is a small doable project, maybe a half a mile or a mile, in length, that we eventually want to build on from year to year. So again, looking at the Wachusett Greenway as the example, that's how they went about this. Every year they would apply for grants, they would do fundraising, they have membership, they have a lot of different things. But when you look at their slides, you see a whole group of people out volunteering, and they're obviously being led by people who know what they're doing, so, but when you just need in hands and you need equipment donated to your cause, people come out, and that's what the people from Wachusett were telling us. People, when they see something real that can be built, they want to come out and help. And we're trying to provide the impetus for that to happen. So that, but again, I don't want to get too far off of, tonight's was, again, really, this workshops are going to be, really general so that they can be applied to any project, anywhere. And, but at some point, if there's a practical exercise where you're going out into, an area to try and build something, or, then we're gonna have to pick a site, a location, and I think we'll probably, once we get the schedule set and we see where everyone's coming from, who registers, and we'll pick something that works. We'll have to find someone that's agreeable to allow us to do something on their property, that type of thing. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
One thing I do want to stress is there already, as has been mentioned, there are already a lot of trails out there. They may not necessarily be set up to go from New Bedford to Fall River through Dartmouth and Westport. And again, you could speak better on Wareham than I can, but there are connections that will allow us to put them all together. And again, I think if that's done, they could be quite powerful. We've seen, for example, using right here in Dartmouth, I remember 20 years ago going into the McBratney property off of Potomska Road, and if I saw someone there, that was very rare. Now you go over there with the Little River Reserve and the Cornell Farm, and you cannot say it's not a well-used trail system. And I think it's because of the fact you're going from point A to point B, along with the tree ladders and everything else, that it's turned it into a very valued recreation resource. And this area is blessed with tremendous natural diversity and beauty, and I think it's very underappreciated relative to some other parts of the state. And I think we have a gem that many of our own residents don't realize what we have. I've traveled all throughout the state and many other states, and I continue to be impressed what we have here versus elsewhere.
And another point, just I want to make, sometimes when we look at properties where we talked about, opportunities, missed opportunities maybe in the past, and trying to think forward so that we can, preserve certain areas. So there are land trusts that have done a lot of preservation in these areas, but we also have the opportunities in a lot of communities are what's called CPA communities, so Community Preservation Act, and the way that works is that it's basically an element of your tax base. So everyone contributes to that a certain amount of money, and those funds can only be used for certain things, historic buildings, but one of them is for recreational purposes. So in some communities, or preservation, open space preservation. So, for example, in Fairhaven, there was a project a few years ago right off our Phoenix Bike Trail, which is an asphalt paved trail. Beautiful. If you've never been there, you should visit it. And there, a few years ago, the Buzzards Bay Coalition, through a major project, nearly $6 million project, purchased a big tract of land that went from in that area that went all the way down to the ocean, right down to the bay. And in part of what they negotiated was a trail would be built from the bike path all the way down to the bay, and that was done. The town of Fairhaven appropriated close to $200,000 of community preservation funds that year in town meeting as part of that, and the town of Mattapoisett appropriated a similar amount of money. So that was part of what made that grant work. But now we have a beautiful trail. People go down the bike path. They'll park their bikes in a bike rack, they get off and hike all the way down to the water, and I can tell you, many people have commented to us in the town about how beautiful that is and how much they appreciate the efforts that the town went through to secure that. So those are the types of things, and if you go all throughout the South Coast, there are many, many examples of these, beautiful places you can go for a walk or a hike, or trail running is very popular now. People are doing that, mountain biking, all these types of things. And the soft trails give you an opportunity to ride a bicycle on them as well as do all those other things, but they're so much more affordable to build. And that's the whole idea behind what we're trying to do here, is say, we do have this vision of one continuous off-road path, like Greg was saying, from Providence down, to Wareham. But it takes a long time, it takes a lot of money, a lot of effort. Recently, actually, in next year, Mattapoisett is due to begin construction on a new segment of the pathway to extend further into Mattapoisett. And I know there was just an announcement this past week, I believe it was, Wareham appropriated $200,000 towards a study. Was that not?
We appropriated $200,000 4 or 5 years ago, actually.
Was it that long ago?
Yeah.
Okay.
It takes a while.
There was something new that took place just recently. It was in the paper.
Mattapoisett was approved for 2019 or 2020 for their bike path. Do you remember?
Mattapoisett's 2018. They're doing bidding, and
I think the TIP program that we just did,
okay.
I think is later than that, because Wareham got pushed in at the last minute for their program for 2022.
Yeah. But anyways, those projects take a long time to develop, and it's very competitive. The funding sources are very competitive. So we're trying to, in parallel to looking at all those things and trying to develop a long-term plan in that area, we're trying to figure out ways to get people more accessibility to all these spots, and some interconnectivity with all of them through to get people out, and out into the outdoors, basically. So I also wanted to mention that these workshops are going to be free. So this part of this grant was to make sure that they're free and accessible to everyone. Before we leave tonight, if you have a strong interest in any one of them, please either make sure that you note that in the paper or you email us. And also, if you're here and you don't think you want to, the workshops, as Erin mentioned, are limited in number of people that can actually participate. So if you think someone else is interested, we want to give on a first come, first served basis. Anybody who was here tonight to be able to sign up. But if you were here and you're not going to attend the workshop, but someone else, you can kind of sponsor someone. You were here, so therefore you can they can sign up, later using your name as having been here first. That's, just because we want to make sure that we do this fairly. We have a question.
Just 1 second. Before that happens, I will also send this information to Bob and break down the workshops individually. So if you don't remember everything from the slideshow, he'll have a handout that says the sustainable trail layout and design would cover these topics, and we'll get those to you by the end of the week.
Good, and we'll try to work with Dartmouth Cable TV to see if we can get a copy of this. Maybe we can post it onto a YouTube link or something like that. And we'd like to have the other communities along the South Coast share it with their, through their cable TV programs.
Sorry,
we have a question.
Yeah.
Get back, are these workshops scheduled yet, or?
No, what we wanted to do is that they'll be in the fall, right? We're looking just to kick them off in the fall. It's going to be dependent on the availability of the group here that we saw, right? Erin and her company, and we also just wanted to kind of get a feel from people who are interested, what night, what the best time frame works. If it's
Actually, can we take an informal survey right now? Would a weekday work better for you? Would a weekend work better for you?
I'm open anytime.
Okay. Nope. Weekend? Okay, how about weekends? Like a Saturday? Okay.
How long would a typical session be?
Probably 8 to 4:30. I mean, it's a full day.
It's a full day.
Yeah.
So,
Or we could do a little bit later, 9 to 5 too.
So
I'm an
weekend
early
would be
morning,
Saturday
right?
to Sunday.
For a 2-day, yeah. So that was, I guess, my question. Would folks prefer a Friday, Saturday workshop or a Saturday, Sunday? Because you would pretty much, that would be your whole weekend. So folks, a preference for a Friday, Saturday. Let's get a show of hands. Okay, great, thank you. And then a preference for a Saturday, Sunday.
One of those, I could go that way
Okay,
too.
yeah.
Seems like more Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, seems like more Saturday, Sunday. That's good
Okay.
to know.
That's good then. And then some of them will be just one
Yeah,
day.
one,
but-
some of them will just be one day.
Okay.
One of them.
Well, that's, I'm glad you interrupted for that. It was a good one. And Paul, you had a
I think we
question?
had a question up
Oh,
front.
that was for,
Oh, okay.
One other question.
sure.
Given space is limited, is it possible to take all three, or how would,
I'll leave that
Well,
up to
we're
you.
gonna, I think we're gonna set a date where we'll have a cutoff and say by this date, we'll take all the registrations up until that time. And I don't know what that is yet. We'll communicate that by email and on our website. And at that point, we'll see if there are enough openings and people wanna do multiple, then we certainly can do that. We wanna utilize every spot that's available to us. It's just that if we do end up with more interest, we wanna kind of share as well. So that was my thought. I don't know if anybody, has any.
I can add something to that too. For the specialty skills, if there's a lot of interest and it's not the chainsaw class, then we can probably bump the numbers to 10. Just with the chainsaw class, we're limited to the number of participants to instructor ratio so that they get proper training and enough time on trees.
Okay. Mike?
So is this meant to be fall, this fall?
That was the idea. If your schedule
can do
works
it,
and if everyone's agreeable to that, it's flexible. It doesn't have to be, and it can be. We can do some in the fall and some in the spring. That's that the grant will allow us some time to finish. So that's really kind of open. Is there a good, better time to do it than?
Fall's a good time.
Fall is the good
Fall's
time.
perfect.
Yeah.
No bugs.
Right, yeah, it's, spring, sometimes you have, it's really wet, right, and so fall, when we talk about fall, is it September, October?
September, October, I think is what our schedule is right now, but if folks want to do November, that's fine with us
Still-
too. We just can't do anything before September.
Okay, not before, and we probably don't want to be in December,
Yeah,
right, so, okay.
September, October, November.
What I'd like to do is just, I know a couple people came in just after we started, and we had some introductions, so Gail Hartnett-Rogers is up there. She's also a member of our committee. She's from Westport, and I suspect that our selectman from Westport probably was talking to Gail a little bit, so appreciate that. And Cindy, I recognize, maybe if you want to introduce yourself to everyone, just if you.
I'm Cindy Marlin, I'm the director of media, but I'm interested in the land in Dartmouth, so, and my mother, Dr. Eileen Marlin.
Oh, nice to meet you, all right. And did someone else come in after we started? Yes.
Hi, my name's Bette Lowe. I have a chainsaw and I know how to use it.
All right.
If anyone here has an idea how to reach out to different people we haven't, contacted through this, let us know, or please pass along, the information about these workshops to them. But we'd really like to, we've done, Sandy's done a great job with the press releases and, social media. It actually, just if you don't mind, a show of hands, just how many found out from reading in the paper about this, okay? How many found out through social media? All right. And how about just through word of mouth from? Yeah. Well, so all three. Did I miss anything, Sandy? No. That's good. So that's kind of a broad mix. People found out all different ways. It's working that way. But yeah, if you could please just, if you can think of anything right now that we're missing to reach out to people, we'd be glad to know. But Mike.
So do you have places in mind for these workshops? Are you looking for host properties, or what's the protocol there?
We are looking for host property. So definitely, if you've got a thought of anything in particular, or if you have a little project that you think, that would fit in with what Erin described, by all means.
Yeah, we discuss that later.
Yeah, for sure. I know you've been a big help to Greg, and you guys have, learned a lot, well, he's learned a lot from you, so certainly we'd like to be able to have this workshop support something that you could use, or one of the land trusts could use on your property, for sure. And then, maybe if we identify more than one opportunity, maybe, volunteers can come together and try to help.
So because it's a sort of a regional look, are you looking to distribute properties regionally, and also are you looking for participation regionally? I mean,
Yeah, I think what we're trying to do is cast the net wide and see who's interested, and people, I guess we're assuming that people that come to the workshops and have a real interest in this, wherever they're from, might show up to a project that takes place in, whether it's in Dartmouth, Fall River, Westport, Marion, Mattapoise, it doesn't matter where it is. If we find a project we think is a perfect fit, and that's where we want to go, I'm thinking that a certain number of people will come over and do that project, and then maybe people will meet each other and kind of get some help other places. There are, I know, for example, that as a selectman in town of Fairhaven, we've had a number of Eagle Scouts come before us wanting to do projects, and some of them have done projects in, trail projects with bridges and so on, and they brought their own volunteer base and their own donation of materials and so on. So I think for us, it's trying to make connections and trying to, make something happen there, and hopefully establish, a network of people that when we need, when we want to advocate for funding, that people will come forward and help us with that. So, yes.
So if they see this and people are interested, who do they contact?
So we have, the website is South Coast Bikeway, and if you just Google that, it'll show up, and all the information about the trails will be on there, and our contact information. If you go on there, you can find contact information for the various towns that are in the South Coast Bikeway. So, for example, if you're looking for Dartmouth, there's a link to the Dartmouth, Pathways Committee, there's a link to the Fairhaven Bikeway Committee, so on. But, so you can find more local contacts, but specifically to this Trails program, you would go through the website, and then there's a contact, there's a place to send emails through there. And that is that anything else you want to add, Sandy, or correct me?
Yeah, they can also contact us through Facebook message.
Okay.
And email us at TheSouthCoastBikeway@gmail.com.
Okay, thank you, because that's, yeah. And, the Facebook seems to work very well, right? A lot of people are using that, so. Okay, any other questions? Sure.
Many museum programs, when they have a training or a docent program, they request anyone that's gone through the training to contribute a certain number of hours. Were you thinking of doing something like that?
That's a good question. We had not thought that one through, but it's a nice idea. What do you think? Do people think that's a good idea?
You better show up.
Yeah.
Well, so in other words, you go through the training, then you're obligated to donate hours to.
They say per month, it's usually not a huge amount, 4 hours a month or 5 hours a month, but it keeps those people involved so they don't just drop away.
Okay, and it would be that, for example, in this case, who would they be doing that work for? Would it, like, say, a local land trust, or we could develop a list of opportunities for people, and as long as they do it with any one of those, is that some partners that we would have, like that kind of thing? Yeah, I think.
It could be that they turn around and train others.
True, right? I mean, certainly if the training of others, probably depending on what they're doing, might require certification, right? So,
Yeah.
So, but, I mean, maybe there are certain basic elements to that could be true for. And,
There certainly are, especially in the stewardship skills and treaded drainage focused workshops. There's absolutely topics that once you attend the training, you can go through and easily teach other folks.
so maybe this idea that you have would come in the form of just a pledge that we ask everyone to, so there's no contract, you're not putting a deposit, or don't, it's just, but I think it's a really, really nice idea, right? Seems to, people are nodding, so, yes.
you can help get the word out, I formed a committee in Westport, so, Bike Path Walk Committee, officially through the town board of selectmen put it together. So I'm
Excellent.
looking for volunteers for that.
All right.
And then one person so far signed up, and I've had it out there for like 2 months.
Oh.
So maybe you can help me with the Facebook site, but, you
Yeah.
know, Westport's a key part, and I'm trying to get people on there to help us get it through, so.
Right, appreciate that, and this, like Greg knows, there's a lot there in, you know, Westport, Dartmouth, Fall River, there's a lot of really good opportunities there that we should be looking at. Westport's got some beautiful bicycling areas too, and there are people, I can tell you, there are a lot of people out on their bikes in Westport riding, in Dartmouth riding, all these, but it's, how do you get them interested in helping out? And I know, you know, sometimes, so you've had the word out through, what, in the newspaper? Just,
Westport?
yes.
Yeah, Facebook, newspaper's done a story, we've talked about it at selectmen meeting. Every
Okay.
meeting we post that we're looking for people.
Right. Yeah, sometimes I think, you know, it might help to have a specific project in mind that you want to enlist people to do, you know, so, I know that, you know, when I became involved in this organization, it was because I read something in the newspaper. They were talking about what this group is doing, and I showed up in this room, and kind of been involved since. And I think one of the things that we felt at the South Coast Bikeway Alliance is that because our goals are so long-term and it just takes a lot of patience. Bonnie D'Souza, who couldn't make it here tonight, has been working in Mattapoisett for a long time, and sometimes it gets frustrating because you want to see things move along quicker, but but you have to have people like her who are willing to stay the course to kind of see the fruits at the end, and she is starting to see that. But this is why we thought this was a good thing for us to do. Someone came to speak at one of our summits a few years ago, Craig Della Penna. He's an excellent speaker. He's a realtor, and he does a lot with rail trails. I saw him at a conference Bonnie and I attended in Mass Bike held this conference back in November or December last year. It was December, it was snowing, and he's the one that, you know, I told him, I said, we're kind of looking for something we can do that's shorter term, you know, because we need to engage people and get their interest. And he mentioned to me, you know, going after these other types of grants that are more on for the soft trails, and they're more geared towards less expensive projects that you can get volunteers to be involved in. And so we thought that was a great idea, and that's why we've kind of gone down this path. So maybe if you have a specific thing that needs to be studied, you know, how do you connect to somewhere, you know, or if you, I know Gail's familiar with some of the projects that people have mentioned in the past. If you can kind of pick one out and say, you know, we really need a group to go off and study this and give us some feedback. You're a CPA community, you get, yes, so, you know, there's, I don't know if there's a, protection, is there anything you can think of to add, Greg, in terms of, you know, looking at properties in terms of conservation and
Well, I would say we certainly have some projects in mind. Part of it is making sure we have the political support for those projects. The one aspect of a lot of, and I'm talking about the off-trail aspect, not the on-trail aspect, is most of the land is already in public hands or owned by land trusts. So we're not dealing with 200 private property owners. And say, for instance, Dartmouth, we're literally only dealing with, depending on how you define it, 4 or 5 property owners: DNRT, Dartmouth Parks, Dartmouth Conservation, Fall River Water, and New Bedford Water. For those who don't have it in their communities, Fall River and New Bedford own a lot of property within the suburbs, and Dartmouth has both. On one side we have Fall River, and on the other side we have New Bedford. Westport has a lot of, Fall River owns a lot of property in Westport, and I'm not sure if there's any such thing like that in Wareham, but if you were from Middleborough, Rochester, or communities like that, you'd certainly know what I'm talking about.
Right. So, I mean, it might be a matter of trying to think about, what is it that we'd like to accomplish in the town in terms of bicycling? Are we looking to increase tourism, to get some off-road? I know some people are, a lot of the advanced cyclists are comfortable riding on the main roads alongside traffic. But I think what we're going after here is more the people who are not comfortable with that want to be off doing some kind of recreation off the road if they're on their bikes. And then I think what we're trying to do also is try to branch out to not just cycling interests, because we realize we have a common interest with people, from, even though mountain bikers are still bikers, our focus has mostly been, on road. We haven't done a lot with the mountain bikers, and now we're kind of seeing that mountain bikers have very common interest in this. And then the trail runners, it's become very popular. People run, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there's these trail races that they have. People run all the time on these trails, and then they have races that do, and then people want to just go out and hike. So there's many more people interested in just cycling, but we're figure that if we promote this as we are the South Coast Bikeway, serve all those interests, and we hope to grow our organization by doing that.
One thing I should note, this grant was competitive. Not everyone gets this grant. We were fortunate to get this grant our first time out. But one of the reasons that we were able to get that grant was the letters of support. We had broad-based letters of support. All sorts of organizations wrote letters on our behalf, many very well-known organizations. We're hoping to take that support and build upon it. We had a meeting recently in New Bedford about using their water line, and we certainly need to have a lot more conversations, but we were very pleased with the response we were getting. Literally, the water superintendent called the idea awesome. So I thought that was...
So just a point of clarification, what he's referring to is, there's an underground water main that there's a clear path, and people use that right now for a walking trail. And what we were trying to explore is if that segment could be considered part of our network here. We could make it officially okay to go on that. And some of that is passable right now on a bicycle. So it's those kind of things that we're looking into. And if you look in this lower right-hand corner here, there's a project that's been talked about for a number of years, to build a pathway all along the Acushnet River on the New Bedford side and Acushnet into Fairhaven. And that's a project that's in a development stages still, but the mayor of New Bedford has proposed what he's called the Blue Lane, or the city is calling the Blue Lane. He's supporting it, and they're trying to use it as a tourism tool. And going from the south end of New Bedford, if you're not familiar with what they've done down there in recent years, they've built two beautiful harbor walks right on East and West Rodney French Boulevard. If you haven't had a chance to see that, you should go. It's really beautiful, elevated over the hurricane barrier, looking out over one side to Fairhaven, the other side to, over towards Dartmouth, and then all along inside of East and West Rodney French Boulevard, they have bike lanes, and in Fort Rodman, there's nice bicycle paths in there. So they're trying to look at connecting those all the way up into the north end of New Bedford, and having a path like that people will use, and it'll be seen as a tourism attraction as well. So what we've done is we've looked at, hey, how can we find a way to get there? And that was one of the motives of this path here. And then the other, aside from recreation, we look at this as an opportunity to connect. The woman who was leading this organization when I first started was always very focused on how could we connect New Bedford and Fall River for transportation purposes, because people would do that. And this is maybe a way that we could do that. And maybe people aren't going to go all the way from New Bedford to Fall River, but people that are in between there may be riding from where they are to New Bedford or to Fall River or New Bedford and back home. It's not too far from the New Bedford Industrial Park. If you look at it, these connections over time, if we kind of think about it in a master planning sense, and we kind of say, ideally, what would we like to do? So this is just one example. We'd really like to see a much more expansive plan. And, these things would take quite a while to build, but you gotta start by at least having a vision of what it is we'd like to see. So that's kind of what we're doing. And we really want other people to tell us what they'd like to see in their community. So ideally, we'd have people coming in from every community all along the South Coast saying, we like the idea, and this is what we think should be on that, that plan. And then we would try to prioritize and say, these are the ones we want to try and do first, or we might find that certain ones are not going to work and other ones would. But this is really meant to be very open, and we hope we get a lot of participation from people.
And as these projects mature, and we develop credibility, I know the amount spent in Fairhaven and Mattapoisett, never mind New Bedford, or Fall River, are quite significant. The one in Mattapoisett we were talking about, that's millions of dollars right there. What they've done in Fall River is millions of dollars. What they're done in, I'm not sure how much.
That's they call Class 1, the paved asphalt off-road pathways, yes. Those are very expensive.
Yeah, but as we mature their concepts, it opens up new doors in terms of grants. And but we got to start somewhere. We got to start with our field of dreams, if you will. If you build it, they will come, and go from there.
Okay. So, any other questions for Erin while we have her here? Or
What's the next steps after this meeting for you guys?
For us, it's going to be, now we've kind of settled on Saturday or Saturday-Sunday sessions. We will work with the Peter Jensen group to come up with which specific dates those will be, and then we will advertise again. And we'll certainly, everyone who gave us their contact information will hear from us, and then we'll ask you if you could also help us spread the word further. I think we'd have another notice in the newspaper, Sandy, probably at some point. We'd be able to do that, right?
We could, yeah, certainly.
Yeah. We haven't actually laid out all the steps yet. This was we wanted to just get some feedback and see what kind of level of participation we had. But we'll certainly have something on our website that will direct people, and we'll send word out by email. And if someone else that wants to be on our email list, we have a general email list and we try not to send out emails. If we have a special event, we'll send out an email to, we call our friends group, and it's quite a large group. But we try to only do that for special events. What we'll probably do, I think, is form a special email list that's just related to this Trails program. So if you want to be on that, we'll send you emails, and if you tell us you don't want to hear from us anymore, we'll just take you off. We'll be very respectful of that for sure. That's what I'm seeing so far. Any other questions? Sure.
From what you've discussed, basically, for Wareham, we have 2 members, actually 3 members from the Land Trust, including myself. I'm also a steward for a particular piece of property. When someone is a steward, they're responsible for at least a year of checking that property every so often, making a yearly report to keep it up. But someone's phone's on. But in Wareham, in particular with the Land Trust, we've been buying property very consistently with the CPA program for quite a while. We have a lot of what I call trails, which be runners' trails, mountain bike trails, not really normal bicycle trails.
Right.
So on some of these programs you're talking about, I can say that through the Land Trust, we have pieces where it would be ideal to develop these particular courses because they're trails that haven't really been fully developed or started and not cleared up, etc.
Right.
And we have a pretty strong group of people involved.
Oh, good.
Obviously, the Buzzards Bay Coalition has quite a bit of property they've done as well.
Right.
I
Buzzards Bay
think what's
Coalition.
important too is when you go from these courses to the next step, you're going to have to look very carefully at the Conservation Commission of each town.
Yes.
We're not the same
All right.
at all.
Well, that's, and that's
And it
where,
gets very difficult if you're in any area with wetlands as to what you want to do. And also Beth Lambert at the state level, you have to talk to them as well. But the cost of an actual, asphalt trail, as a typical example, just recently, Wareham has about 1.5 mile trail, which is Minot Ave, Narrows Road. I think it's 1.5 miles. The total cost is $4.5 million.
wow.
Mattapoisett, I believe, they've got $800,000 invested of their own money. I believe their project is over $8 million because it goes over a bridge or two.
Right, so that's
And
the
Marion is actually
key. If
before
you're
Mattapoisett.
in an environmentally sensitive area, and wetlands and bridges and things like that, it can be very expensive.
Yeah, it's
I
hard
think
to
a
make
rule
them-
of thumb, if you look actually right in the, I think if it's in there or not, but the Serped has, cost estimates of what, it would cost to build certain types of facilities. And so I think if you're just run-of-the-mill, if you're on a rail trail, for example, like Fairhaven built, you'd probably be talking $750,000 per mile. It's still very expensive, even at that.
Yeah, roadway's $1 million a mile minimum, but when you have to do all these other things, it gets out of sight.
Right,
But I
right.
would think if you have some of these smaller projects, which are not gonna be basically, one piece to another matching, it might be, at least as far as the training goes, it might be more valuable.
Yeah, we'll find that out. And I think, the other thing in terms of helping us, the Buzzards Bay Coalition, as I said, we're gonna do the trail mapping thing. And one of the things I talked to Mark Rasmussen from the coalition earlier this week, and just by email, we had a couple exchanges there, but he said maybe we can work together to figure out the best way to get the word out about how much already has been documented. So, people, I'm not sure if anyone here is familiar with all the trails that we have in our area. I know quite honestly, when we started talking about doing this under Greg's leadership, I went out and I have a new mountain bike now, so I started riding on some of these trails myself because I wanted to be more knowledgeable about, what these opportunities were. And I was amazed at how much we have right around us here. So I think it would be helpful to have a map that kind of tied all those things together and also showed, how close they are to some of these other points of interest that we're talking about. So people can maybe get from their home, to a path maybe they didn't realize was even there. Or from work, they might want to go out at lunchtime, go on one of these paths, something like that, so.
I think you should take advantage of SERPED. They have a very large GIS program. Things are mapped out for all different levels for economic development, et cetera. They get like 8 different levels.
Yes.
It's up to each city and town. If they provide the information on the trails, they can put it into their overlays, and then you can go any section you want and look to see what's actually available.
Yes,
It's a tool we should be using.
And by the way, Serped is actually, they actually are part of our organization. They're not a voting member, but they have a representative, Jackie Jones. Yeah, it used to be Jackie Schmidt, now it's Jackie Jones, and she's currently on maternity leave, she just had a baby. So but she comes to all of our meetings, she helps us, she actually helped with the website initially, and Sandy's taken over a lot of that with Jackie being out, but she's definitely involved and normally would be at a meeting like this. She's helped us with our summits, and when they do their regional bike plan, they ask us to help them, get people to go and comment on what they're doing. So they're definitely a partner of ours, and but they have the Oliver system. If anyone's not familiar with that, there's an Oliver system. It's called Oliver, but it's a state GIS system. And you can go on there and you can see a lot about the area. There's different layers you can turn on and off, so you can see different elements of trails, and it's a pretty interesting tool. So what we're looking to do, I think, with the GPS mapping is maybe have something that's a little bit more user-friendly to people that are just looking at this specific.
Any individual can go onto the SERPED site and look.
Yeah, at the Oliver, or at Serped.
Programs available to
Yeah,
anybody.
yeah, Serped's, by the way, for people that don't know, is Southeastern Regional Economic Planning and Development District, SERPED. I might have had some of those, but it's a regional planning agency. It's a quasi-government agency that all, communities have access to, and, so that's excellent.
They have two committees, JTPG and MPO. Those two committees basically do all the transportation for 27 or 28 communities in southeast Mass. Any bike program or bike path is approved by them because the state funding goes through them. So anybody that thinks they have something going on, they basically should have one of their selectmen being at the meetings, because every town has a commissioner member, at least at that level.
That's a good point.
I know Mattapoisett and ourselves were sitting there fighting for the last funding up until 2022, and Mattapoisett had $800,000 in the mix. We only had $200,000, so I basically smiled and said, I'll defer to Mattapoisett. And they came back, and because we had done it the way we did, they were pretty nice to us, and they found some money they could move around, and the Wareham project, I say, got put in for 2022, and the Mattapoisett was 2020.
Good.
But that's the only way you're gonna get funded.
Right.
There's no other state funding available any other way, just so you know.
SERPED also does smaller, they have smaller initiatives too. Like a couple of years ago, they had a big bike rack program. So basically, it was a grant program, and if you applied for this program, you had to show where you were going to use them in your community, but they would basically pay for, the racks themselves were paid for, and you just had to you had to pay for the shipping charge only and the installation. So for example, in Fairhaven, the Fairhaven Bikeway Committee had raised some funds and paid for the shipping, and the Public Works helped install them, and we have, I think, 22 new bike racks all over the town. And so SERPED, and that program, that's just one example. I mean, other communities had done the same thing. So there are quite a few, and the South Coast Bikeway helped promote that through our members, and so that's an example. But all right, well, I think if everyone's, sure, go ahead.
A comment, you're looking to see about what trails are already existing, not necessarily bike trails, but just paths. I know that the Wareham Land Trust has trails, a Wareham Trails Guide on our website, and
Okay.
it's under the Resources tab. So other land trusts might have something like that on their
Yes.
sites as well.
I have seen, looking at some of them, I've seen some nice maps on some of them, and I think, now, would Buzzards Bay Coalition have a link to yours, do you think?
Mhm.
They do.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that Mark Rasmus is going to show me that, hey, here's all these links, and you can start off with those. And to be honest with you, if what they have is more extensive than we realized, then we may look to reshape that GPS mapping workshop in some other form. We may have to go back to the DCR and say we have a different idea, will this qualify? But so we'll be working with Mark on that. But I think it would be helpful if we had one kind of thing that looked at all the South Coast and showed all the different, trails that are existing in one location. So again, our thoughts are that, just like the example I mentioned at Fairhaven, that someone might want to ride their bicycle to a place where they can then go for a hike. We actually, earlier this year, Peter and Sandy came on a ride we had in Fairhaven that just did just that. We started out at Fort Phoenix, right? We rode to
Fort Tabor, actually.
Oh, they started out, right, they had a group that started at Fort Tabor, cycled to Fort Phoenix, met another group of us there, and then we biked down to this Shaw Farm Trail, locked up our bikes, and went for a hike down to the water, and came back. And so that's the kind of thing we're hoping to promote to people, that just, to get out and use these resources, because they're beautiful, and it's good exercise. It's good for all of the people in our community, in many ways. So, and we're understanding that the land trusts would like to see more people out using them, right? So we're hoping that's a common cause. So if anyone, in addition to these workshops, if anyone's interested in, helping the South Coast Bikeway Alliance out with what we're doing, we've been meeting, we're meeting every month now. We've gone to every quarter or so, and especially in the summertime here, but keep, tabs with us through the website. And if you have a specialty, like Paul, like I said, he came to our summit, and then he liked what he heard, and he volunteered to come and help us with mapping, and he's been working very closely with Greg, and a lot of what you're seeing on these maps has been through his work with Greg, and also someone in the town of Dartmouth, right in the planning department, so.
Environmental Affairs Coordinator.
Yeah, so if you have a specialty that you can offer to us, we definitely appreciate your help. We're a small group, it's all volunteer, and we definitely, one thing that we think we really could use is help writing grants, because this grant came to us just, we found out about it, we applied for it, we got it. And if we had more resources and people spending, the time to be able to do that, we might get more grants and have more opportunities. So if you know anybody that's a grant writer, or is willing to put in some time doing that, we'd like to hear from you. There's other areas we could use help with, but forming a bike committee in Westport, that's a good one. And we had a very strong representation from Fall River at one time on our bike committee, but people have had to leave for different reasons, so we're definitely looking for some new participation from Fall River. So if you know anybody. And Wareham, yep, right, Wareham too. Wareham's got a lot going on, but on our committee, we could use a representative to attend our meetings, and we feel that we help each other out when it comes to, someone's got a question about how to go about a certain thing. Some of the communities didn't even really know the CPA funds are available to them. So we kind of help each other get the word out on that. But
My question, so you don't have anybody from the Friends of the Wareham Bike Path or the Wareham Bike Committee?
not currently. Over time, we've had several people. And Eileen Elgore was working with us quite a while, and then she had to step down for some of her own reasons. But also Joan, and yes, she was helping us for quite a while. She had to, so that sometimes we transition in and out. But if you have someone that you think,
We'll fix that.
oh, that'd be fantastic. So, all right, so thank you, everyone. If you haven't already, make sure we have your contact information if you'd like to hear from us. And if you have a preference for a workshop, either put it on there or contact us by email, and we'll get you information on the timing, dates and timing and everything, okay? So thanks to Dartmouth Cable TV for recording the event, and Erin for coming all the way down from New Hampshire for this. All right, thanks, Erin.
Thank you all.